Hello guys! So in the previous video we've learned how to create multiple threads using the pthread create function, which is found in the POSIX library, but we haven't learned how to set the attributes of the thread that we just created. So we simply went using the default attributes. And in this video I want to show you how you could edit those attributes the way you want. So let's get started. Okay, so here is the pthread create function, and it takes in the memory location of the variable where I want to store the thread ID, and this is all done automatically by the operating system, so I do not have to specify the ID, but because I'm sending the value by reference, as we mentioned earlier, the value will be stored in the variable I create, okay? And the second thing I send is a struct, and that struct is a struct that contains the attributes of the thread that I created. So what can those attributes be? Let's have a look. So looking at the documentation, we can see that the struct is called pthread attribute, and some of the members are the flags, which is a Boolean value that determines whether you want the thread to be detached or joinable. Other things include the stack size. So we are given a default stack size, but we could increase that, okay? Other things you could change potentially include a scheduling, the scheduling way, so you could set it into first in, first out, among many other scheduling algorithms that you can set, which are other than the default way, whereby the kernel chooses which thread has to execute next. So you could change these values, and if you're interested in this, you can check this documentation. But now let's see how this works in practice. So I want to create the struct that allows me to have those attributes, and it's called simply pthread attribute t, and I'm gonna call it attribute, okay? By the way, this code is the same as the one in the previous video, but I'm just changing the attributes of the threads here. So if there's any part you don't understand, please refer to the one that's directly before it. Now, this gives me the attributes. So this is basically a structure that stores the attributes, but I want to initialize them. And luckily, there's a function in the POSIX library for that called POSIX init for initialize. And what you have to give it is simply the memory location or the memory address of the struct that we just created, and we called it attr. So here it is. But this just gave the structure the default variables, so I didn't do anything here because if you've watched the previous video, I was passing a null value here in order to have the default thread attributes. So I could have done that without creating these two. So like the purpose of this video is to actually edit some of these attributes, and here I'm gonna decide to edit the scheduling policy of the threads created, and I want my kernel to execute those threads in the order they came in. So if I create thread 0 first, I want that to be executed first. And there's set scheduling policy, so I have to give it the struct that holds those attributes, and this is it. Now I have to give it the policy that I want to implement, and it's called schedule first in, first out FIFO. And here we go. But now when I create the loop, instead of passing it null, I have to pass it the memory address of the struct that I just created, and voila. Now my code is supposed to work fine. Let's run it. So GCC, and this is example3.c pthread. Okay, so here's the output, And if you notice, my hellos are being printed in the order they were created in. So I have the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. And this is basically the first in and first out. I run it again, and same thing happens. So my threads are running in order. And you can simply keep doing that, and the same thing will repeat over and over again because I've instructed my kernel to execute the threads in a first in first out basis. So this is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful, and if you did, please press the like button. See you in the next one.